Hey, this is Saiger, welcome to my stream. Hey, this is Saiger, welcome to my stream. And I managed to get the starting intro back on the stream, but at the same time I managed to get the reverb back. Hey AJ, thank you for moderating this stream that will take us back to the Harlem line. And we will delve into the positive train control elements that we have on the trains that run on this DLC. Actually, I already know which service we want to choose. Last time we played the Harlem line, we ran from North White Plains to the Great Central Terminal on the 80s train, the Bombardier M7A. Now we will reverse the thing and we will use the M7A in the MTA Metro-North livery and run from the Grand Central Terminal to North White Plains, so the route the other way around, and we will not focus on the signaling but on the safety systems and how they are implemented in the game. So this is our train, this is our service 822 if I am not mistaken. Yes, let's just play in November. Maybe we will get some rain here. We probably won't get any snow today, but we had snow last time, so I think this is okay. Hey, no name 444444. Thank you for the I am glitch icons. Yeah, when we are starting in the Grand Central Terminal, then that means we have to go a bit underground. So I will just turn on the train, open the doors, so that passengers can enter, and the 2 minutes that we have until our train can actually start, I want to invest in having a look on our screen that we have here in the train, and you can see that a lot of it is actually working and animated and can give you vital information about the safety systems that are at work in the train. So on the right one you see your speedometer, of course, and on the bottom you see the status of your brake pipe and the brake cylinders. It's just the same reading as we have here on that side, and you can see that the ATC system, the automatic train control system that makes sure that you confirm with the cab signals, is bypassed at the moment. At the same moment the alerter is bypassed, and you can see it on those two indicators here. The PTC, the access system, is cut out at the moment. We want to cut this in, and this is why we have to turn around and cut all those things in. ATC, access, alerter, and the Deadman pedal that does not really work in this train, but let's cut it in anyway. We have to fill our brakes first before we can start this train to 90 psi minimum. The rest will be done by the train on its own. We have to turn off the marker lights on this train because they need to be on the back end of the train but not on the front end, and then turn our headlights on. While we are running out of the Grand Central Station or terminal, did we not lock the doors? Well, we have to lock the doors. The thing is, if we are delayed a bit at the start, it might not be that important at the start, because most probably, if I remember correctly, we might run into a red signal anyway on our way out, like just here. We cannot just leave, even though the timetable says we have to leave. This red signal stopping us, obviously. We can ask the dispatcher if he just forgot to if he just forgot to switch the signal to proceed, but no, we have to wait for a different train to pass. So this actually gives us some time to have a closer look again on our indicators here. Now that we turned everything on, the ATC is operative now. We have a green light here, the alerter bypass light has come off, so the alerter is actually active. So this upper compartment here is for the ATC. ATC controls if we are complying with the cap signals. Here in the middle are the cap signals: normal, 60, limited, medium, restricted, and the stop. And this indicator belongs to the ATC. If it is cut out, it is lit. This is more or less the same that we have on the screen on the right. If it is ATC bypass, then ATC cut out. Those are the same. And then we have the ATC forestall, the brake assurance rate, and the penalty brake and the emergency brakes indicators. They all belong to the ATC. We will look into this in our presentation a bit closer. Now we got a clear signal. Oh, that was the wrong direction that I moved the lever. We have to blow our pipes, our brake pipe first before we can leave. And then we can pass the signal. If that happens, you're yanking your lever into emergency brakes by mistake, then put them to max brake and fill the brake pipe again. It is, funny enough, the same principle that you have on the ICE-1 train in the Schnellfahrstrecke Fulda, or what is it, Kassel-Würzburg. After an emergency brake application, you have to refill your brake pipe by pushing a button, otherwise you will not be able to go on with your journey. We are limited here to 10 because we are in the terminal. We need to know that. ACSES is not telling us that. This track speed indicator with the dashes is the indicator for the ACSES system, and this is where the ACSES system usually tells us the civil speed, the track speed limit that applies to the part of track that we are traveling on. If we are in territory that is not protected with ACSES technology, then we will have the dashes. And then the operating rules say if you are out of ACSES territory, then you're always limited to 10 miles per hour. We have two overspeed indicators. One underneath our speed clock, that is for the ATC, that tells us that we are faster than the signals allow. Then we have to yank in the brakes. As soon as we yanked in enough brakes, the brake assurance rate indicator will come on, and then we know, okay, we won't get the penalty brake. And the ATC forestall at the same time will light up as well, and we will not end up having a penalty brake. If we're getting a penalty brake, then the penalty brake indicator will light up, obviously. The other overspeed indicator, that one here underneath the track speed indicator, is the one that belongs to the ACSES system. Okay, HA, I will come to your question soon. The overspeed indicator for the ACSES system, that's what I have been talking about. This one will light up, will start flashing first, and at the end it will light up. No, it will light up non-flashing, and then it will be flashing as soon as you get the penalty brake. This tells you that you're faster than ACSES allows. Don't worry, we will have a look at this in a presentation as soon as we are at Harlem 125th station. You mean you're talking about this label here, AJ? The white sign It says all electronic devices must be turned off and stored away as per FRA regulations. That tells the driver that he mustn't listen to audiobooks on his MP3 player or on his phone or whatever while he's driving the train. Obviously, driving a train can be a bit of a dull experience if you do it every day. That is the Federal Railroad Administration, I think. That is the government body that more or less regulates the railway carriers in the United States. And one of their purposes is to issue safety instructions and safety precautions so that accidents are prevented. And in this case, they prevent drivers from being distracted. Now we saw that we ran into the access territory. We have a 60 on the track speed indicator, and that means we can just start accelerating. At this point, when we are getting into the access territory from the Grand Central Terminal, we don't have to wait for the train to pass the speed changing point. We can just go in. All we hear is a beep. We don't need to acknowledge, we don't need to do anything. We just have to push the throttle and bring the train up to speed. What I like about this service here is that because of the red signal that we encountered at the beginning, we will be a bit late on our first stops, and we have to drive a bit up front to get some time back and to get back into the timetable. So I know from my track knowledge that we are closing in on a reduction to 45. This is why I'm slowing down already. So I'm not waiting for access to tell me that there is a speed limit up ahead. They will tell me as soon as the train knows it. And you can see those boxes in the middle of the track. Those are the transponders. They tell the train now you have to go 45, beep, and the train indicates we have to go 45 for us in the track speed indicator. At the same time we get an alarm and we have to acknowledge it because it was a reduction. Now we don't have to acknowledge it, it beeps anyway, tells us track speed is back to 60, but from my track knowledge I know there is no point in accelerating because we will be running in a speed reduction to 45 soon enough. So no point in accelerating. See, we have to acknowledge the 45 drop again, and then speed limit goes back to 60, and now we have to wait until the end of the train has passed the speed changing point before we can actually accelerate to the 60. We have a 8-car train, and from my experience I know where actually I have to be until the end of the train has passed the speed changing point. Now we are running along Park Lane. We're accelerating to 60 almost. If you look out on the outside, you can see on the left side the northern end of Central Park passing by. We are running from, more or less Manhattan behind us through Harlem. And the next station is Harlem 125th Street. We will be getting a signaled reduction here. You can see 40 up ahead, so we can start braking and slowing down. The signals actually warn us about the incoming speed limit earlier than the ACSES does. Below the 40, here is the definite speed reduction. We have to acknowledge that. Honk for the stop, and then slow down. You can see, if you check it on the timer on the top left, that we are already behind schedule, since we had to stop at the red signal first before we could actually start driving. And now I'm losing more time because I want to stop in the perfect stopping position. At least this has been accomplished. We can bring our external camera in a position where we can see the train and the passengers getting off the train, if there are any, or on the train. And we can see we will have to get back about 2 minutes of time. Yeah, actually my voice has to get louder and softer again, because I have to hear what I'm saying and the noise gets louder. Just, yeah, I promised, as soon as we are at Harlem, I want to run through the presentation here. Last time we did the signaling system for MTA Metro-North. Just a short recap. We learned that we have different types of signals depending whether we are running on the main line or whether we are running in the Grand Central Terminal. We have the proceed aspects on the main line that are just flashing greens. In the terminal we have the red over green that allow us to pass. The flashing greens point us to our aspect display unit in the cab, where we have to look what signal we are getting in the terminal. Even if we get a clear proceed, we are always restricted to the 10 miles maximum. The aspect display unit has those balloons. We have normal cab speed, that means we can go maximum authorized speed. We have limited speed, that is 45, like in the NORAC universe. We have medium cab, 30 miles. We have the restricted, that allows us to go 15 on the main line, and we have a terminal signal for that, red over black over steady yellow, again 10, but also maximum 10. Always be prepared to stop in front of another train that is already in the block. Obviously we have stop signals. They look like this: red over black over red on the main line, or just the red on the topmost bulb in the terminal. And we have this stop balloon on our aspect display unit as well. Last time I told you we won't see that because we will spad out before we see that, and now we are learning that there is an exception for this, not because of the signaling system in itself, but because ACSES is actually hijacking the signaling equipment here and displays the as balloon in a certain situation that we will cover in a couple of minutes. Yeah, the stop signals obviously tell you to stop and go with a velocity of 0 from this point. There was also this approach signal, but only in the terminal, the flashing yellow on the bottom. Again, you can go with 10, but you have to be prepared to stop at the next signal. Other approach signals or advanced signals, we don't have them in the Metro-North universe. The 60 balloon is not used in the game. Whether the absolute block signals that you can encounter on the main line are still in use, I don't know. In the game I haven't seen them. at least, at any rate. Okay, that was the recap for the signaling system. What we have seen in the approach to the Harlem 125th Street station, we have track side signs, roadway signs that warn us about incoming speed restrictions. They tell us on the advanced sign to what speed we have to slow down, and then on the definite sign it just marks the point where we have to slow down, or where we have to be below the limit that was indicated on the advanced sign. Again, recap from last time. And now, new safety systems. What safety systems do we have on our train here? On the M7A and the M3A, both of them have, and now I'm using what we already used, a matrix that we already used in the safety systems stream for the British Railway Class 465-9 networker train, and Bob was more or less an example for all the more modern trains in the United Kingdom. We are using the same matrix. We are checking, we have equipment that is checking if the engineer is actually present. Therefore, we have the Deadman's pedal in our trains. This is not functional in the game, though you have a switch where you can turn it on and off, and there is an animated pedal in the train actually that you can press and depress, and as long as you're sitting down it is pressed. If you push the button you release it and press it again, and if you stand up it gets depressed again, but the train does not react to it. So in the game you can actually stand up and walk around and depress the pedal and nothing happens. I guess that in real life the train should go to a stop as soon as the pedal is not pressed longer anymore. So this is more or less like the DSD on the British trains, the driver's safety device that just checks if the driver is present. Then we have a check if the engineer here, I was always saying driver, but I actually changed my presentation here, representing the fact that in the United States trains do not have drivers but engineers, obviously. So let's stick with this. We have to check if the engineer is active, because he might just be there, slumped down, having his foot on the pedal, pressing it down. Doesn't help us a lot, so we have to check if he's actually doing anything. And on the American trains we usually have an alerter for that. It is a bit similar to the vigilance equipment on British trains. It doesn't do anything as long as the engineer is operating controls. If he fails to operate any controls like the brake or the throttle or the horn in 25 seconds, then there will be an alarm and an indicator light comes on, and then you have to operate the acknowledge button, or in this case it is more like an acknowledge lever. If you don't do that within 15 seconds, then you get a penalty break. So same principle here, alarm first. If the engineer does not take actions, then we will have a penalty break. On the British train we have the AWS system to check if the driver is reacting to signals, and it was very rudimentary on the British trains because the driver also only had to acknowledge if there was a non-green signal, the bing from the train on green signals and the boop on other signals, and the driver had to acknowledge the boop. Here we are a bit more sophisticated because we are actually checking if the engineer is reacting to cab signals, and this is the ATC system, the automatic train control system. We have on our aspect display unit the signaled aspects, and the train checks if the driver is actually conforming with them, and if the driver is not conforming with them, then he will get an alarm, and after that, if he persists not conforming with it, then he will get a penalty break. So the driver has to manage speed according to the signals. Obviously, he has to push the acknowledge button in certain cases. He has to apply enough brakes to reach brake assurance and ATC for stall. We will look at this closer on another slide. The first time, for now, it is just enough to know that the ATC system controls if the driver is reacting to the cab signals and conforming with them. And then, this is new. We have a system here that checks if the driver is reacting to track speed limits. This is not signal speed, this is the track speed that is allowed on the track. Civil speeds, it is called also in the United States, and this is why this whole system is called Advanced Civil Speed Enforcement System, ACSES. And this is a system that just checks if the train conforms with the track speed. For that, the train obviously needs to know what the track speed is, and for that we have already seen that there are the transponders in the track that are activated if the train is passing over them, and they send an impulse, data impulse, and the train knows, okay, this is where I am now, and this is what the actual speed limit is and what the incoming speed limit is. And then the train computer can actually check if the engineer is conforming with those informations. So again, the engineer has to manage the speed, he has to operate the acknowledge button, and he has to apply brake assurance, so he has to apply enough brakes to get the system, or to prevent the system from going into a penalty brake. And then we have a system that is a bit, it is on the dividing line, because it is actually running in the ACSES system. So it is part of the ACSES system, but it is not controlling whether the engineer is conforming with the civil speed, but it is controlling if the engineer is stopping in front of a red signal. So this is a red signal protection. It makes sure that the train does not run a red signal, and for that it provides a positive train stop. It is a system that is designed to stop the train in front of a red signal if the engineer is not slowing down enough on its own or his own, and to ensure that the red signal is not run at all, so that the train comes to a stop in front of the red signal. And all this together, the automatic control of the signals, the automatic control of the track speed, and the protection of the red signal is what we usually call the positive train control, the PTC. This is why on our aspect display unit the ACSES system is called the PTC, the positive train control, for the cutout. Yeah. How does this stuff work? The ATC, the system that checks if we are conforming with the cab signals that we are getting. We have to make a distinction between two cases. As long as our actual speed in the train is not faster than the signaled speed, the speed that is signaled by the balloon with the L for 45, for example, or M for 30, as long as we are not faster than the signaled speed, then we, for example, get an upgrade in the signal. That means this upward pointing triangle. Then the system will just beep and inform us about the new aspect. We don't need to do anything. If the signal does not change at all, obviously we don't need to do anything as long as our speed is below the signal speed. If the signal is downgraded, gets more restricting, then we need to do more. We will get a beep again from the system, and then we have to push our acknowledge button. So even if we are below the signal speed, because of whatever reason we did not go to the maximum allowed speed from the signal above, like we are going with 28 under a limited, an L aspect, and then the aspect changes from limited to medium, allowing 30. And even if we are still underneath the maximum speed that is allowed by the new aspect, we have to acknowledge it in case we would like to accelerate. So this is what we have to do. We have to acknowledge within 7 seconds, or we will get a penalty brake from the ATC system. AJ is asking, are the beeps different from each other, or do they sound the same in either situation? No, they are actually different. They are different between the two trains, and they are different for the situations. So the beep that you are getting here from the ATC is just a one-time beep, and it is rather short. It is like a beep, beep that you're getting. The access beeps are longer usually. They are beep, beep, and the alarms accordingly. To the alarms we get now, if you're actually traveling faster than the new signal speed actually, or the old signal speed, or whatever, then you are controlled so that you are actually going conform with the speed. So it does not really matter if there is a signal change or not. Most of the time it happens if the signal is downgraded, obviously, but on the other hand you can just accelerate, and then the actual speed of your train supersedes the signal speed, even if there was no change in the signal speed anyway. So every time we are traveling faster than the new signal speed, we will get an alarm, and this will be, like I just said, on the ATC, this alarm with the shorter notes, it will be like beep 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 beep, and you will get the overspeed indicator steady on, and this is the overspeed indicator underneath your speed clock, not the one underneath the track speed indicator, but the overspeed indicator underneath your speed clock. It will come on, it will light up and will be red, and then you have to apply brakes, as much braking force, usually 60% is a good choice here, until the brake assurance indicator lights up and the ATC forestall lights up, and then you can just slow down until you are not violating the new signal speed anymore, and everything is okay. Sometimes you have to press the acknowledge button or the acknowledge lever also, but regularly it is just enough that you apply enough brakes to get into brake assurance, and then you get the ATC forestall light. If you are applying brakes and you are getting brake assurance but not the ATC forestall, just hit the acknowledge button once more. And this has to happen within 7 seconds until the actual speed, your traveling speed, is 2 miles per hour below the signal speed. So you actually have to go those 2 miles per hour as a safety margin underneath the signal speed. Then you can release the brakes. Then the overspeed indicator should go off and the alarm should go off as well. If you don't do that, you will get a penalty brake and will be stopped. Then there is a special situation. You are getting all this, the alarm and the indicator, and then for some reason the signal is upgraded again, so that your actual speed, without you having applied brakes, is now not higher than the new signaled speed. Then sometimes you don't have to do anything, everything is good, and but hit the acknowledge button just to make sure. Sometimes it seems that it is necessary to hit at least the acknowledge button in this situation, but you don't need to brake anymore because you are already underneath the signal speed. So this is the procedure in the reaction matrix if you are faster than the signal speed. You can see that quite easily if you compare the reading of your speed clock with the signal aspect. If you see the L, then you obviously need to translate it in your head to 45. If you see the M, to 30, the R to 15. Yeah, and that's it. What you have to memorize, those 3 values, no more. That was ATC, control and ensurance that you're not violating the cab signals. And now we have to look at the access system, what is a bit more sophisticated than the cab signal control. The cab signal and its control is actually something that is around for quite a time, decades actually. The access system, the civil speed enforcement system, is the newer part of the positive train control on our trains here. And for that, just let's have a look what happens if there is any reduction in track speed. Like here, from 90 to 40. I put the signage underneath our diagram so that we know what we are talking about. On the speed diagram on your pause screen, it looks like this: 90, then 40, just a step. Obviously, nobody can stop like this, so the train has to go a speed line that is more or less like this. Yeah, obviously it can go steeper or less steep or jerky or whatever, but this is what we have to do to bring down our speed from 90 to 40 at this point. And what does ACSES do now? I put in here the yellow ACSES transponder on this line here. They are not actually yellow, often they are yellow, so that they can be seen easily, but they can be seen easily as well here in this route as well. And this transponder tells the train, you are here at this point of the track, and in a distance of so and so many meters there is a reduction to 40. And then the train tells this to the driver, and at the same time there's a computer on the train, and it calculates a brake curve. It calculates at what time the brakes have to be effective to bring down the train to the speed reduction in time, latest. And then at the same time it calculates at what time the brakes need to be activated to hit this brake effect curve, so that we are at 40 at this point here. And then it is defined that the controlled ACSES speed is actually 6 miles per hour below this activation curve here. So if we subtract the 6 miles here, then we can find the ACSES curve. In between the controlled ACSES curve and the curve where we have the brake activation, there is a fourth curve, if you want it like this. That is the alerter curve, and this is just in between. 3 miles per hour above ACSES and 3 miles below the brake activation curve. So what happens if a train runs? The computer calculates this ACSES curve, and this ACSES curve starts with 90 here, and at some point it drops, because the closer the train is getting to the reduction in speed limit, the less velocity he can have, or it can have, to still be able to apply enough brake power to slow down enough to hit the 40 or the restricted speed at this point. So ACSES does not control this stepped curve here, but it controls the 90 at this point, obviously, and then the curve, the calculated brake curve here, what I put on the diagram in pink. This is the velocity axis that is controlled by the system. If the train is getting faster than the ACSES curve, nothing happens as long as the train is only up to 3 miles per hour faster. As soon as the 3 miles per hour faster curve, the alert curve, is hit, then you will get an alert. Then the overspeed indicator in the ACSES system will activate, and you will hear an alarm again. And then you can react. And if you don't react and get faster still and get 6 miles per hour over the ACSES curve, then the train will activate the penalty brake to ensure that the effect curve is met, and that the train then slows down to 40. As soon as the train has slowed down enough, the driver can take back control of the train, so the train does not necessarily need to come to a standstill after the penalty brake in the ACSES system, but the ACSES system just enforces the speed limit, whether the engineer wants it or not. And as soon as the speed is enforced, then ACSES hands over control back to the driver, the engineer. So if this is our actual train speed, then we are running here faster than the ACSES curve. As soon as we are not faster than 3 miles, nothing happens. And at this point, we violate the alerter curve, we get the alert, and then here at this point, we even violate the penalty brake activation curve. Then the penalty brakes are activated and slow down the train to the 40 here. This is what can happen. But at this point, as soon as the actual speed is below the ACSES curve again, then the driver can take back control and control the brake procedure manually again. We have seen this system already in the KVB stream on the Javelin, where we talked about the French system Contrôle de vitesse par balise. It has a quite similar system that protects speed reductions by calculating a brake curve based on the information that you get from a transponder, so that the reduction in track speed limit is actually enforced. It is not just like that the train can run on, and after it has passed the limit, then the train reacts and applies penalty brakes, so that the train slows down after the reduction. It has to slow down before the reduction, or it is enforced. So the same again, you can get a penalty brake even if you have not passed the speed reduction point. All good still, AJ? The next thing is, what do you have to do? The reaction matrix in the ACSES system. Before that we had a look at the reaction matrix on the ATC system. Now the reaction matrix for the ACSES system. And it looks a bit the same, but there are some significant differences. As long as your train speed is not violating the ACSES speed curve, the one that we just calculated here, the pink one. As long this curve is not violated, the limit can go up. The train will display the new limit on the track speed indicator, and it will just beep. Beep will be a bit longer than the one when the signals change, but you don't need to do anything. As long as the limit does not change, obviously you don't need to do anything either. If the limit drops, goes down, you will get your beep, and you have to acknowledge it within 7 seconds or penalty brake, even if you are actually slower than the new speed, the dropped speed limit. You have to acknowledge it anyway, otherwise penalty brake. This one here is the same when you enter ACSES territory. This is what we just did when we drove out of the Grand Central Terminal. We entered the ACSES territory. From the dashes it gets upgraded to 10 first, and then very fast to 60. We just get a beep, we don't need to do anything, and we can just accelerate to the new speed. Limit drop is the same when we are leaving ACSES territory. Then our track speed indicator goes back to the dashes, and then we have to acknowledge the beep within 7 seconds, or we get a penalty brake. So ending procedure is just like any other downgrade in the limit, and entry is just like any other upgrade in the limit. What happens if we are actually running faster than the ACSES speed? And again, regardless of limit change, this can happen if the train is accelerating above the ACSES curve, or it can obviously happen, and this is more often the case, the train is not accelerating, but the ACSES limit drops and the train is not reacting. So every time we are faster than the allowed ACSES speed, then we have to look at where we are. It looks a bit more complicated than it is. If the alerter speed is smaller or equal than the actual speed, and still the actual speed is smaller or equal than the brake activation speed. That is, to call it out sloppily, if we are violating the ACSES +3 miles curve. Then we will get an alarm, and the overspeed indicator underneath the track speed indicator will light up steadily at first. Then we have, just like in the ATC, have to assure our brakes. So we have to put in brakes, so until the brake assurance lights up. We don't really have a brake assurance light on or a separate one on the M7. We have that on the M3A, I think, but not on the M7. But we have to apply brake assurance within 7 seconds, and then we have to leave it on until we are 2 miles below the ACSES limit. Again, we have this safety margin of 2 miles that we have to go under the ACSES limit, and then the overspeed indicator will go off, the alarm will stop. If not, we will get a penalty brake. But again, this is not a penalty brake that brings us necessarily to a standstill, but we can take over as soon as those conditions here are met, that we are below the ACSES speed again. Again, this special case where we at first are violating the alerted speed and then the access limit changes so that our actual speed is below the access limit again, then sometimes you don't have to do anything, but it is always safe to hit the acknowledge button anyway. At least you don't need to put in any brakes, but the acknowledge button can't hurt, at least if the alarm does not stop without it. If you don't do that and just go on or accelerate so fast that within the 7 seconds the train cannot react with a penalty brake and you violate the access plus 6 miles per hour curve, that is the brake activation curve, so your actual speed is bigger than the brake activation speed, then you will get an alarm. It's just the same alarm. The overspeed indicator will now start flashing. It is no longer steady lit, it starts flashing and you will get the penalty brake and the train will slow you down. Again, you can take it over as soon as you are 2 miles below the access speed, but there is no more waiting 7 seconds or whatever. As soon as you hit or violate the 6 miles per hour above access, then you will get the penalty brake at once. Last bit of information about the system. This is the positive train stop functionality, and I already told you it is more or less a mix between the access system, because it is part of the access system, runs in the access system, but it uses elements of the ATC system and it protects signals, not civil speed. It protects the red signal. Let's imagine here is a red signal, and now we are not working with the transponders in the track, but with radio. So here connected with this red signal is some radio emitter, and it sends a radio signal that can be picked up by the train. As soon as the train gets close enough to this emitter, he will get the signal. There is a red signal at this point. And then ACSES will calculate its curves again. This time not from 90 to 40 or whatever speed reduction, but from 90 to a stop. And yeah, we have it here, 90 and then a stop. And ACSES, so we will have to drive something like this. We have to bring down our speed. And although some AI drivers and engineers, especially in the game, do that all the time, we are not supposed to stop right dead on the red signal, but always in a certain distance of it, so that there is a safety margin, obviously, and it has the positive side effect that we can actually read the signals, because if you are standing just in front of the signal, we can't read it without putting our head out of the window. But the most important idea, obviously, is that we have to keep some safety margin. Normally, unless in stations, it can be different, because you maybe need to get closer to the red signals because of the platforms and stuff, but usually you should have a distance to the red signal. This is why ACSES calculates its brake effect curve in a way that the train stops at a certain distance to the red signal. So the activation curve at the same time brings the train to a stop here, and the ACSES curve that results from this also stops with 0 at a certain distance in front of the red signal. Also the alerter curve then. And this is the curve that is protected by the ACSES system here. This is our ACSES speed. We have to slow down at this point and have to be at a stop here in front of the red signal. You can see this is not a track speed restriction. What ACSES is, according to its name, good for to protect, but it is a signal protection here. It cannot be done by ATC, but because as soon as the aspect switches to red to stop, the train has already passed the red signal. So an ATC stop protection can only stop the train after it already having passed the red signal. If you want to prevent the train to pass the red signal, in the first place, then you have to rely on this positive train stop functionality in ACSES. So this is an add-on to ACSES, where you can see that ACSES is actually doing more than just enforcing the civil speed. It also enforces a stop in front of the red signal. So again, if we are not paying attention and just running on towards the red signal, hitting the alerter curve, not reacting, hitting the activation curve, then we will just be brought to a stop at this point here by the ACSES system. And then the track speed indicator will tell us 0, because from this point on we cannot go with any speed, we have to be at 0. So the track speed indicator, even if it is not a track speed, because a track speed of 0 does not make a lot of sense, because then you can not run on the track at all, but this just derives from the red signal. And at the same time, the aspects will already show the stop signal. So this is a situation where you can actually in the game see the stop indicator being on without spatting out. Yeah, that was my explanation for the ACSES system and the ATC system, the alerter and the Deadman's pedal. I hope it wasn't too confusing. We can go back to the train and see all that stuff in action. While at the same time we are trying to make speed to get back on the timetable. We can see track speed indicator tells us 40. Cap signals tells us normal, meaning we can go the 40. But I know that approximately where those signals are, there is another restriction in speed, track speed to 35. So I'm slowing down already. And I only had to acknowledge the change in speed. Just some externals from crossing Harlem Bridge, this time during day. I'm totally enchanted by this part of the track, by this scenery here. This is just good scenery design. Yeah, your clapping is totally merited here. And now back to train driving, or train running, since we are in the United States. I'm always mixing this up. But there is no train driving in the United States, we are running the trains. Now track speed increased to 40. That's why we just got the beep, we don't have to acknowledge it. But still the train has to travel its length until the end has passed the speed changing point. What has happened approximately now? I just memorized that it is about when we reach a bridge or a certain tree or a certain signal, so that I know that the train has passed it. Now track speed increased to 60. Train has to run its length. And again, should be about here. But we have to stop at Melrose. So we can only accelerate a bit. Since we want to catch up some time, I have to drive a bit more aggressively than I would usually do. Well, saying so, I'm not actually that aggressive. So, it's actually almost 2 minutes that we have to make up. That means we have to initiate the door closing process soon enough. Release the brakes to minimum until we are allowed to go. %50 and then increasing the power as we are gaining speed. Now we have to stop at Tremont. That is just in the middle of this fast part. The track speed will climb to 75. Now we have to travel about to this next bridge until we can accelerate. When we are at 75, we should start slowing down at about 2,500 feet away from the station, from the stopping position. So I coast at 72. Now see how the speed develops. If we are not slowing down fast enough, then I have to apply more brakes. I've got my private braking curve in my head for that. I want to be at 30 at 600 feet, and this has been achieved. At about 200 with 20 or a bit more. So, did we gain some time? A bit. Some seconds. We have to pick them up 10 seconds, 20 seconds wise. Station by station. This is a service where you have to stop at almost every. Always keep the brakes at minimum at least. As soon as the doors close, you will lose all the pressure in your brake cylinders and your train can actually start rolling away. If you have to wait some seconds. So again, we can use the 75 track limit, but since we luckily have an N aspect, normal speed, maximum authorized speed, as soon as we are around the corner, we have to prepare for the stop at Fordham. And there is a reduction to 60 just short of the station. But we will have to slow down before that. You can see the green brake assurance indicator lighting up. That is the train telling us that we have enough brakes applied actually, so that we would even suppress a penalty brake application. That was the reduction to 60. Passengers are walking dangerously close to the train, to the end of the platform. So what we have already seen is how the ACSES system works with the changes in track speed. And how I kept the speed below the limit, below the ACSES curve, so that an overspeed indicator did never light up. Stop at Botanical Gardens is quite close. We won't get to line speed. Before we have to slow down again. So this is a situation where it probably does not make too much sense to accelerate so hard, but I want to climb back on top of the timetable. Well, we're getting closer. We're within 30 seconds now. When I'm back on the timetable, then we can make some experimenting and see if we can get our ACSES computer to react to our driving. So I forgot to release the brakes to minimum. That cost us a couple of seconds again. Wakefield. That means we're not stopping at Woodlawn. We're going through to Wakefield. And there is one interesting feature here. You can see it on the pause screen. We're not stopping at Woodlawn, but after Woodlawn we have a drop in track speed here to 40, and I can tell you this drop to 40 on this short part of the track will not be recognized by ACSES. I don't know if this is a bug or if this is something that is so in real life. You will not see it on the track speed indicator, but you will be docked by the game for violating the speed. But first we can make some speed after this bend here. Track speed increases to 75. We're not stopping at Williams Bridge station, I think is the next station here around the corner, so we can actually make use of the track speed of 75. To get back on our timetable. Yeah, we could have, but now we got a limited cap signal. You can see it here, the L button is lit. I yanked in enough brakes to have brake assurance here, and ATC 4 stall. Now both indicators turned off again because I slowed down below the 45 that were signaled. Now we're even signaled down to 30, again ATC 4 stall and the brake assurance, and now signal got upgraded again. So yeah, why does this happen? Why are we getting those changing aspects, limited between medium? It totally depends on our distance to the next train in front of us. If we are getting too close to the trains, then we are getting more and more restricting signals. If the train goes out of the way, we are back to normal. So we can speed up again, but as soon as we speed up too much and getting too close to the train, then we are getting restricting signals again. Now here is the restriction in track speed to 60. This is Woodlawn here. Woodlawn station, I guess. But we don't stop at Woodlawn. And now you can see it. We are running in a 40 restriction. And now we got... Interesting. Now actually it recognized it. And now we got, because we violated the axis +6 curve, we got a penalty brake that brought us to a standstill. To recover from it, we have to go to max brakes, blow up the brake pipe again, and then we can just drive on. But that is interesting. Last time I tried to do that, I did not get a penalty brake here, but very nice. Now it worked. So this little reduction to 40 here was enforced by ACSES with a penalty brake. But now again we are back on the 60. And we are closing into Wakefield, getting a restricted signal. We've been underneath the signal speed of limited. This is why acknowledging was enough. These short lower restrictions, they protect some vulnerable point. This can be a switch, this can be a bridge, this can be a stopping point or a station area or something like this. And obviously you need to have the track knowledge and know that the reduction is there. And then you have to slow down in front of them, and after that you can accelerate again. Does this make sense as an explanation? So those short speed restrictions are a bit like a bottleneck, and obviously they slow down the train, because even if the restriction is only short, the whole train has to pass until it can accelerate again. But that was like asked for. We got an example for an ACSES penalty brake because we did not react to the 40. And at the same time we saw that the ACSES system is not a guidance system, so the engineer cannot just rely on ACSES warning him in front of the speed reduction in a way that he can just react to the reduction in track speed what ACSES tells him. The warning that you get from the ACSES system, you just saw it right here, it dropped to 40 and almost instantly we got the penalty brake. This is obviously not enough to react to it. It just enforces it and does not make the track knowledge dispensable. So we are still running under a limited aspect to our next stop at Mount Vernon West. And we still have to catch up some speed because of our penalty brake stop. So the track layout, actually what I wanted to explain, those 4 tracks here are used in a way that the middle one for both directions are the fast lanes usually, and the ones on the outside are the slower ones, the ones for the trains that stop more often. The further away from New York City that you are getting, and the closer to White Plains, the more, well, at some point there are no more 4 tracks, but only 2. And now we're getting from the slow track to the 1 track, and you saw that the track speed dropped to 45 on the switch. That was one of those bottleneck points, AJ, and we were protected actually by the signals because we got a limited aspect that held us below the 45 anyway, so we were not surprised by the drop to 40. And every time the reduction is due to a switch, then, or not every time, but very often when it is due to a switch, then we are warned about the reduction with a signal aspect. Because like the 40 reduction that we just did not conform with was not the switch, it was the station, so the engineer, me, was supposed to know that it was incoming, so it wasn't signaled. But as soon as we are running across a switch, the dispatcher needs to tell us, or it is nice of him to tell us, that we are getting this restriction because we are routed across a switch. And this is what the dispatcher can use the signal aspects for, to tell us about our routing and about the speed limits on that route that we are sent. Now we are at Fleetwood. We are back on the timetable as far as I can see, so we can relax a bit. And I think we are not yet completely at the part. Oh yeah, we have lost already 1 track. We are down to 3 tracks here, and soon enough we will lose the next one as well. And in the end there are only 2 tracks parallel. Wow. I think you can totally see that the scenery design is much more elaborate on this DLC than it was on older DLCs. It is not the longest DLC ever, but I think it is a really nice one. Closing into Bronxville, next stop. And here we got a restriction to 55 just after this bridge that is protecting this bridge point here. You will see the drop to 55 now or very soon. You see? So I think this is just protecting this curve here. Now back to 60. If we want, we can accelerate, but we don't want to. We can just let the train coast to the next stop at Bronxville. Does it have something like the elephants? It has something, but I am afraid I forgot what it was. It was, I think, not anything as cool as the elephants or the... What was it on Rhein... on Ruhrsieg Nord, the signal box. But there was something. But I'm not sure anymore what it was. Had to look it up. And I think I completed the mastery for this route. What I cannot say for every route, because some of the masteries are weird. And the game does not always pick it up that you're completing them. But this is something that I'm not really into. If you want, we can check what it is actually later in the game. Or can I access this on the settings? I guess I can't. No, I can't access it from here. So we are back on the timetable. Even have half a minute to kill until we can go on. So Tuckahoe is the next one. What is a weird name, I think. Can always recognize the stations by the color of their footbridges. And Tuckahoe has this yellow one. And those funny wooden structures where you can pass from one train to the other, or whatever they are there for. So, there was enough dawdling because we're almost behind timetable again. There is an M3. And what I really like in the DLC is that there are not only local slow trains with many stops and fast trains with few stops, but a lot of different services with different stopping patterns, and they switch from the slow track to the fast track, or from the fast track to the slow track in different patterns going across different switches. So you have to know the speed limits for all the switches where you are going over, if you're not warned about the speed limits on the switches by the signal aspects that you're getting. Crestwood. There are some services that end in Crestwood, and if you are so unlucky that an AI driver takes one of those services to Crestwood, oops, then you can run into a red light issue. Because if I may demonstrate that, this is Crestwood track 1, I guess, and over there it is track 4, and some of those empty coach moves you have to go across those switches here, this line of switches, and if you drive that service yourself, you come here and there is a signal somewhere in front of it, like here, yeah. You have to stop here, and as soon as you stop, the object gets checked, and then it turns to green, and the switches are set, and then you're bringing your train over those switches on track 4. And this is something that the AI does not really accomplish. The AI train stops in front of the red signal. Oh, my doors are still open. And then the signal turns green and the switches do not get set, and the train just waits to eternity. And this is one of the reasons why there are red light issues on this DLC if you're running towards North White Plains. So what I want to demonstrate, will I do it here? No, I think I will do it later, when there is more track in between, or the 2 miles are enough. I will just accelerate through, well, I want to accelerate beyond access speed here, you see? Now we get the alarm, and now it changed to 65. And we still had to acknowledge. This is what I meant. If you are above the access limit and then the track limit changes so that you're actually below track limit again, so then you don't need to brake or you don't need to slow down anymore, obviously, but you still have to acknowledge. So that was nice that it was possible to capture this on video. Next thing is a drop in speed limit to 60, but this will not happen before we pass this parking lot on the left. And then we have to stop at Scarsdale. Advance warning, definite speed reduction sign. Acknowledge for the axis. Horn for the platform. And then coasting in. Until about 200 feet are left on the clock, and then bring the train to a stop. We're slightly behind the timetable again, but not much. One funny thing that the passengers do sometimes. Sometimes they are really boarding nicely and getting off the train nicely, but some of them, they just start moving as soon as I start closing the doors. They were just like frozen. And as soon as I hit the close the doors button, they go home. Here again a bridge. What this reduction is for. After the bridge we are back to 65. Train has to pass, obviously. Then we can accelerate to 65. Coast. For the stop in Hartsdale, I will start applying brakes at about 2000 feet in front of the stopping position. Honk for the platform. Make sure that we are at 20 before we hit the 200 feet mark. And then it is usually enough to bring the train to a more or less gentle stop. On the 500 points position. So we're closing into the end. There will be a reduction in track limit to 35 at the next station. That is usually announced by cab signals. So we will be typically receiving a funneling down of our velocity by the cab signals. At first we can still accelerate. But according to my experience, we will soon be getting a limited here. Coasting. Oh, somehow we went too fast. We went too fast out of the 60 after the bridge. Just like I said, limited ATC forestall, ATC brake assurance. You have to go down to 43, 2 miles per hour underneath the 45 that is allowed by the limited aspect. As soon as we are below, we can, if we want, accelerate back to the 44 or 45. But we don't want that, because you might have seen it, there is the 35 incoming. So I'm already bringing the speed down to 33, 32 in preparation for the track speed reduction. As we have learned, we cannot wait for ACSES to signal us the reduction. Here is the definite sign, SR, and here is the reduction on the ACSES. You have to acknowledge it. But this is nice to see how the aspect and the track speed controlled by ACSES are two different limits. Sometimes ACSES speed limit is more restricting, sometimes the cap speed limit is more restricting, and obviously the more restricting one is the one that counts. And you have to navigate your speed according to both. Or to manage your speed according to both. This is this funny platform where you have platforms on both sides of your train. And now, which side do you want to open the doors, maybe? Let's say on the right. So people can board from the right. Does that keep people from boarding from the left? No, it doesn't. They just move through the closed doors. So let's open them too, because we don't want to have too many ghosts on the train. And then close them again. Actually, I have to wait for 1 minute, so we can have a look at the station with its nice clock tower. This is not north, this is White Plains Station. I think it has actually the name on the station here. White Plains Station. And from here it is just one more stop to go on to North White Plains. And we will see the positive train stop application of ACSES at this station, most probably, if I'm not mistaken again. We will see it there. And how it works and how it is implemented on our aspect display unit. Again, the 35 is the ruling limit. This is why I'm not accelerating so hard. It will switch to 50, just like it did now. We still have a limited aspect. Now the aspect of the cap signaling is the ruling aspect. We are limited to 45. We cannot go to the 50 of the track speed. Still have to wait until the train has passed the speed changing point for the track limit. Anyway, what should have happened now, about now, so we can accelerate, but not to 50, but to 45. And I guess we will be getting more restricting aspects anyway, like it just happened now. More restricted to M, medium, that means we have to go, and you see, we have to go to the 28. 29 was not enough to stop the alarm. You have to be 2 miles per hour below. Unless with the restricted, I think there is enough to go to 14. But we will have opportunity to see that. I guess we will be getting a restricting because the signal at the end of the platform of North White Plains Track 3 will be red. This is why we get funneled down. At first we have the reduction in track limit to 30 because we went on this, and now we have the restricting. And now I just tried to hit. No, I did not manage to hit the 14. 13 was definitely enough. But again, you saw how the signaling aspects and its limit worked together with the track limit. It brought us down limited, medium, and then medium equaled the 30 from the track limit, and then it was reduced even more by the signaling aspects. And now I will just keep my hands away from the controls and we'll have the train coast like this, and you can already see it up front. There is a red light, and let's now just play ignoring this red light, and let's see what ACSES is doing to perform a positive train stop. You will see at a certain point the track speed will turn to 0 and the S indicator for stop will turn on. The overspeed, that was the alerter first. The alerter here, you could see the indicator and here the alarm, and the overspeed indicator will start flashing, and we will be brought to a stop by a penalty brake. Penalty brake indicator will light up as well. Will just happen any second. I'm not braking. You see? Alarm, penalty brake, overspeed indicator, 0, stop. So this is the positive train stop. You have to, if that happens, apply some amount of brakes to turn it off. We are loading our passengers. Signal has cleared because we still have to go to the yard. Do we have to unlock the doors again? Game, what are you doing with us? They want us to unlock it. What does the counter say to 22? Whatever. Okay, unlocking, locking, whatever you want, game. But I will not drive with the doors open, so I will have to lock them again. And then we can go to the yard. And you can see that the ACSES speed is now down to 10, and soon enough we will get back the dashes. We will hear the beeping and we have to acknowledge it, and we are leaving the ACSES territory because we are driving out on a yard. So the alerter sound, we heard it just before we got the penalty brake. AJ, it is another alarm. So for the ATC you have the fast tone, the beep 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 beep. For the ACSES track speed reduction you have the longer tones, beep beep beep. And for the alerter you have the two-tone, beep-o, beep-o, beep-o. So you can, and that was the ACSES, the longer tone, beep beep beep, for leaving the ACSES area. We have the dashes back. We are still limited to 10 and have to drive our train out on the yard. Yep, a lot of school buses, like everywhere. That was the alerter again, two-tone. Because we did not operate any controls in 25 seconds. So we had this alarm again as well. And I think I tried, or I managed to put everything in that stream that is connected with ATC and ACSES, positive train stop and the alerter. You can see that we don't have any ATC data here because we are not getting cab signals. This is why we are getting displayed R for restricting. If the train is not getting any cab signals, then it displays restricting. You have to drive on site. Always be prepared to stop. Yeah, train is stabled. It was a bit messy. If you look at your stopping position stuff, obviously here we relied on the positive train stop. It stopped us at the position where we should not have ended anyway. Actually in station areas there are sometimes additional transponders that allow the trains to get closer to the red signal that they are usually allowed to get. I don't think that this is implemented here on the DLC on every track at least, because sometimes it stops you short of your intended stopping position, not on the track that we arrived but on a different track. Yeah. This is the Harlem Line, this is the ACSES and the ATC and the safety systems. It is implemented really well on this DLC. Unlike the Long Island Railroad, unlike Boston, what has a lot of issues unfortunately, but you can see that it can be implemented well, and it is really fun to play this DLC with all the safety systems on, and you can operate with what the controls in the cab on your train are telling you. Even on the left screen there is a lot of stuff that actually works, not only the time and the date, but you can also see here on the displays which brakes on your train are activated. Like now I got into emergency, well, that's blow them up again once more, the brakes, and release them. Now at the moment everything is yellow because they are applied, as you can see, and if I release them, the brakes, they should turn to green. Now they turn to green. That actually works. Also the doors, you can see if they are open on the left side they get yellow. If I lock them again, then they get green. The door control itself is implemented here quite sophisticatedly. I'm always using my keyboard shorts, but actually you could use the modeled buttons here for a lot of stuff. The partial open, I don't think that this works, but for just opening and closing you could use that. What I promised to do, AJ, for you is to check what the mastery award is for this line, and then we could maybe have a look at that. It is in the live, I guess. Mastery rewards for Long Island Clinchard, acoustic note. No, I obviously did not complete the mastery. Did I not complete the mastery for the Harlem line? No, I did not. It says in progress. Complete 2-yard move timetables using the MTA. Okay. What is the Mastery Award? There will be a hidden presidential baggage car in the Grand Central Terminal. Okay, I will do this probably 2-yard moves with the MTA. A scenario with a difficulty of 3 or above. This is sometimes stuff, because it is so out of the line or out of the way, you don't do it if you don't check it deliberately, and this is why, even though I have played a lot in this game, level 977, I don't have a lot of those masteries. Some I have and some I don't. I will do that and then I will show you what it is. Thank you very much for moderating the stream, AJ. Thank you very much for watching, bearing with me, and I hope it wasn't too complicated with the ACSES and the ATC or this automatic train control on the Harlem line. It is great that we have it in this DLC. I hope that this is the standard of quality that we will get for future DLCs, and I really hope that we will get the signals in Boston and on the Long Island Railroad fixed, and the cab signals on Sherman Hill. That would be great. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Have a good time. Take care.